Good evening and welcome to the UK and Ireland Radical Race Series here for 2022. It's season 3, we're 3 rounds from the end, and we're here at the Hockenheim ring for one of 2 German races here remaining. We'll be heading around this 4 and a bit kilometre circuit for this race, and then for the finale we'll be back to Germany for the Nordschleife for the traditional finale coming up in a couple of weeks' time. My name is Daniel Handover alongside me here for this race. And that's good to be back, and we've still got a real championship fight on our hands at the moment. 23 points between Simon Edwards and Luke Maxwell heading into these final 3 races, which should provide the entertainment as all of the races so far have been doing.
Very much so. Good evening, everyone. Yes, good to be back. Yes, round number 10. 3 rounds left to go. Let's have a quick look at the championship standings. We will bring them up for you now. Hockenheim ring, fantastic circuit. This one of my favourites. As you say, not too many points separating Simon Edwards and Luke Maxwell. Very, very close at the front. A little bit more of a gap between Mike Busson and P3. Jamie Bird 4th, Paul Clark 5th, Graham Brown 6th, Damien G in 7th, 159 points, Michael LeMay in 8th, Martina Ward 9th, and Dave Rolderson. That is your top 10. 130-something points separate for those top 10. And again, in that midfield, it's still relatively close. There's lots to play for here still, remember. As I say, we've got 3 rounds left. Still a lot can change. 14-car grid, I believe we have on the cards today. And qualifying is underway, so we're going to jump over to qualifying in a second. Just the final couple of points. Even down, a little bit further down in the field there, there's still some positions to be gained and lost. It's very, very close, actually, in that. It's sort of from 14th down to around about sort of 20 seconds, really. It's not, again, that's sort of a 30-point gap. It's not too much at all. So, moving on to qualifying, which has indeed started. Do you know what? Overall, again, Hockenheim ring, we saw this. We've seen this with the previous series of the Radical Race Series. Fantastic circuit. Really, really works well with these cars. There's some tight twisty sections. There's also some really open sections as well. It gives a nice... It's just a very, very all-round circuit. It's a big circuit, which does help with overtaking, especially into turn 4, the hairpin, etc. Well, technically turn 6 if you count Parabolica as a corner, which I believe they do. So, yeah. Very much looking forward to it. As we said, qualifying is underway. And first times will be coming on the board in a few moments' time. Sam Winham is just coming around the infield section. 3rd down into 14. And the final 2 corners here. This is where you and overtaking is a bit tricky in this area. It's more so the open corners down into the hairpin of 6. Possibly turn 8 as well. You could potentially get some overtaking opportunities in, say, turn 2, but really the infield section a little bit more tricky to overtake.
Yeah, especially towards the end there, just as you were mentioning. It's a very difficult and twisty final section, the stadium section as we call it, towards the end. It's just about staying as close as you can through that point to have the opportunities down towards those corners you just mentioned. Turn 2, half chance, but certainly down in towards the hairpin is where we're going to see most of the action. That's turn 6. And we are going to see most of the moves being made there. But by the looks of things, things are staying very close indeed. It's not the longest circuit in the world really here. Only just over a minute and a half in these cars, which is it was pretty short in reality. So Luke Maxwell hasn't got that much of a pace advantage over the likes of Graham Brown and Paul Crabb for the moment. Back boosting as well. And you can be sure that when Simon Edwards puts his time on there, that he won't be too far away from Luke Maxwell either. So that will mean things stay very close. And everybody's going to be worried about going through the hairpin on lap number 1 because it's such a tight corner that just getting around it without incidents is going to be a problem. And everybody's going to be praying they do manage that.
Very, very true. John Hutchison just goes in with a pole. He's currently provisional pole by 7/100ths of a second. So he is currently leading the way with a 132.453. So relatively close there. It's up the front. Again, we're going to see this change. There's about 5 minutes to go left of qualifying. Paul Clark just coming through the final couple of corners. The first lap did count for Paul Clark. It was a little bit slow, 136.44. Luke Maxwell has just responded. So has Mike Busson. There we go. Simon Emmers now goes in. So John Hutchinson, the space of about 6 seconds, has dropped from pole position down into P4. So Luke Maxwell at 132.04 is now the time to beat. Busson obviously in second, just a couple of few hundredths behind, and then Simon Evans a couple of tenths. So very, very close. And in fact, I think, has Paul Crabb done the same time as John Hutchinson? I believe they have, within about 4 thousandths of a second, they've both done the same time there. So again, very, very close indeed. Paul Clark does go up into 6th. It's nice to see, once again, all very close at the front of this field. It's close, actually, throughout, that we can see again there. Even though, again, we haven't got the biggest grid, we've still got some very, very close racing. Take a couple weeks ago, for example. Some really good racing there, even though the grid wasn't as big as we have seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this qualifying session as well is really going to come to an exciting end as well, because John McCutcheon, for whatever reason, is out there quite a long time behind most of his rivals for this session. So Luke Maxwell, Mike Boosson and Simon Edwards at the moment are in the final sector, working their way around. They're all in a solo qualifying session at the moment, of course, and they're all making their way around right now in the final couple of corners. However, McCutcheon only just coming towards the hairpin at the moment, so we are going to get an exciting end here as Luke Maxwell comes over the line again. Will he retake first place for the third time in this session? Not quite. He gets to within a tenth. Boosson gets ever closer as well. Simon Edwards not able to improve on that final lap there. He was just a tiny bit slower, which is quite abnormal for him, really. Paul Clark is going to jump over him as a result, so not a great qualifying there for Simon Edwards, but in the end, John McCutcheon doesn't look like he needed that final lap time. He still had another one in the bank, but he didn't need it in the end. He's gone back to the pit lane. I think he made a mistake on that final lap anyway.
Perhaps so. We've got Dave Rolliston. He's still currently on his last lap. He's going to be going through one of his last lap. Possibly we'll get one more in, but he's going to be going through down into this infill section, go through the Mobile 1 curve, turn number 12. He goes in, there you go. There's your confirmation of John Hutchison in the pit lane. So Dave Rolliston has got an opportunity here. He might be able to get some more places. He hasn't got a couple of tenths and he's golden. I think John Hutchison might try. I don't think he's going to get another lap in. No, I don't think he will. He'll certainly be giving it a go, though. Dave Rolliston, is he going to come across the line and improve on his time? He just comes across the line and no, Oliver Etridge does. He goes up into 8th, but Dave Rolliston actually improved on that time. He stays in P6. Yeah, but Hutchison, he's gone back out again. I wonder if he's just trying maybe a couple just set-up tweaks, perhaps, as might just be running on full fuel at this point. May as well, if you've got the time, why wouldn't you? But he might be trying to go for another lap. I don't think he's going to get it, though. So, if anything, he might just be doing some just final, maybe set-up tweaks or something similar.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing there. I mean, it might have put some fuel back in the car, just getting used to that as well. Know that John McCutcheon he cuts it quite fine in terms of making these races, so he won't have had much time to practice beforehand, so might need this time right now. This is actually counted as one of his free timed laps at the moment because of the way the laps work, and the fact that he's left the pit lane crossing the line to do so. So yeah, this actually does count as a lap, but it obviously won't be any quicker or anything like that. So he is just running out there at the moment, possibly with a little bit more fuel on board and getting himself set up for the race here, really, where he is going to have a hard time of things because, as we said time and again, it is very close between these guys in the session. Comes out the final corner and over the line right now. I believe he can continue on, even if the laps don't count anymore. He will indeed continue on. So they won't be timing him anymore, but he'll still be able to get that little bit of practice in before the actual session. But he is going to have his work cut out throughout this race, because we do have nearly 10 drivers covered by we do have 10 drivers covered by less than a second here in this session at the moment, which is very impressive indeed.
There's going to be some big overtaking opportunities here. We know that for a fact. Down into turn 6, this is going to be one of the biggest ones. This is the braking zone coming up here. You brake so well. You brake quite early, but just because of the fact you're going so fast, you're having to slow the car down as quickly as you can. And even though these cars can stop on a dime, you've still got to brake relatively early. So possible opportunities there for some big overtaking moves. You can lunge from quite a ways back if you're committed. But you obviously got to make sure that you are committed as much as possible. John Hutchison has gone back to the pits. So in a few moments, we will be getting your official grid up, and then we'll be getting ready to go through and run this race. I said Hockenheim, great circuit. We've seen some fantastic racing in the past, as we have done with this series, both in the SR8 and I'm sure the SR10. Even though it's not quite the favoured car by the sounds, and from what people have been saying, people seem to be getting more used to it every single week. They're running through the grid for you now, and we do have John Hutchison indeed on pole position, Maxwell 2nd, Busson 3rd, Paul Clark 4th, Simon Edwards 5th, Dave Rolliston 6th, Paul Crabb 7th, Oliver Etridge 8th, Graham Brown P9, and then Michael May taking P10. Martina Ward 11th, Damien G in P12, Graham Brown in 13th, and Dave Dowson in P14. Watch Dave Dowson, keep an eye out for him. I'm sure he'll be moving up the field, so do keep an eye. We'll see what his charge is like through those opening laps. Ewan, as per usual, it's a bit too hard to call this, isn't it? It's more so once we get through the first lap, take stock of that and then see where we are.
Absolutely, these races can't really be called from very far out, so we are going to just have to see how things develop. But it is going to be hard to look past John McCutcheon. Despite the fact he didn't get much practice in before this race, he was able to get that qualifying pole position there, and he often is very, very strong in these races as well. However, as we keep mentioning, he is going to have his work cut out throughout the day as well. With so many strong drivers just in behind Luke Maxson and Mike Bousson as well, who's the final driver to get gridded up here. Clearly just tinkering with something, and now he's on the grid, and we should be ready to get going.
We should indeed. Lights are just about to come on. There we go. 5 lights. Who will get the jump? And as the lights go out, away we go. Bit of a pretty even start, actually, from the front of the field. Luke Maxwell gets a slightly better start than John Hutchison. He's already into, technically, first place, going down into turn 1. He pushes John Hutchison wide a little bit. Paul Clark runs a little bit wide as well. That's going to open the door for David Rolliston, perhaps. As they come down again at the front, is John Hutchison going to make a move back down the inside? He tries to going through turn 2. It looks like he does, and he does make it stick, but a bit of a sideways moment. Wow, good save there from Hutchison. Very good save. Simon Edwards just slots through, and he now drops down into P4. There's a little bit side-by-side action behind as well for a brief moment. I think that was Paul Crabb and Paul Clark getting side-by-side there for a tiny bit of time. Mike Busson, though, now this is the opportunity going into turn 6. Last of the late breakers, Matt Hutchison tries to get back on Simon Edwards. He's on the inside line, and he does make it stick. So Busson goes through, and John Hutchison I thought was going to go through, but Edwards had a very, very good exit. Good drive out of the last corner. Very, very impressive stuff. A bit further down, Oliver Etcheries, he's dropped a couple of positions, but he's trying to make some moves back. I think Graham Brown, that's a bit of a send from Graham Brown. That's a bit too much of a send from Graham Brown, unfortunately. And I'm sure I saw a potential spin. No, actually, no, it was just the timing tower. So, yeah, Graham Brown did very well to avoid all of that, in all honesty. That could have been very, very bad. That's a move. That's a very big send there from Mike Busson. It's all kicking off at the front here because John Hutchison is now back up into P3, but Simon Edwards won't let him go through. Can Hutchison get the drive? He seems to. He gives Edwards enough room, cuts in front. There we go. P3 secured back for John Hutchison. So now he's got to work his way all the way back through. But Maxwell, he hasn't pulled a gap like we have seen in the past, admittedly. Normally we would have seen in the past we have seen a potential gap of about a second pulled out. It's half a second. It's still a gap nevertheless. John Hutchison is already hot on the heels of Mike Busson. So, very, very interesting opening start there. Very, very clean as well.
Yeah, it has been a very clean first lap and a very good first lap in terms of entertainment as well, as Paul Clark makes his way up the inside of Paul Crabb. David Rolliston did, and then Paul Crabb lost another place. But yeah, I mean, it's not been a great start for Paul Crabb, actually. He did lose, Paul Clark. He was in that 4th place initially. Simon Edwards got through at him straight away. And then he's been overtaken by a few others. Now Paul Crabb alongside him as John McCutcheon's looking up the inside, further up the field. But Paul Crabb makes his way through as Mike Bousson and John McCutcheon have gone around. So McCutcheon did try and make that dive in the end. Bousson goes around and Simon Edwards is able to avoid it all. So is pretty much everybody, actually, as the pole sitter ends up down in 7th place.
Not good at all. There we go. It's all slotted back in. That's a bit. Whoa, that's an aggressive lunge. That was an aggressive lunge on Michael LeMay. Didn't quite work out in his favour, though. So he's now got to get all the way back through. A lot of cars to get through. A podium is possibly still on the cards here. John Hutchison just needs to keep his car clean, make sure he gets no additional damage. We're going to see a replay in a second. But we're already down, with 2 laps down. It's all started kicking off. Not in the first lap, like we normally see, but in the second lap in particular for this particular race. So the short of action is the Radical race series, which is good. It means we've got something to commentate on. But let's have a quick look at. We've got a couple of replays. As Dave Dowson had a bit of a moment. Did he have a moment coming out of? So it's turn 3. Does he get on the? I guess on the grass. Yeah. And is that going to spin him? Oh, that's not good. I feel. Oh dear. Who was that got involved as well? I couldn't. Was that Graham Brown? It potentially would have been. It was Graham Brown. Yes. Graham Brown, unfortunately, having a bit of a moment there. Let's have a now. So this is the replay. So Hutchison, does he just make? It's a very aggressive lunge. Oh, just taps him. Yeah. Possibly we'll look at a different camera angle of that later on, but yeah, just a little bit. Again, look, it was quite far back as well for a lunge. So That camera angle looked like it was a little bit too late for that lunge, but again, different camera angles portray different things.
Yeah, I mean, I think Paul Clark was the other driver, by the way, that ended up getting into that one and spinning around. He's used his fast repair there, and so has Graham Brown to get back out there again, albeit quite a long way down on the rest of the field. But yeah, it's just a shame. These opening lap things do happen from time to time. It's just unfortunate. Difficult to really see what happened with McCutcheon, or with regards to whether we could actually put any blame on him for that or not. But yeah, he may well have been at fault for that. Just not entirely sure. As Martina Ward tries to make her way out around the outside of Michael LeMay, it would be a brave one at the Mobil 1 curve, and so just backs out of it for the moment. Damien G watching on from behind as well. But this field has really just split up ever so slightly because of that. Now we're through lap 3 of this race, 15 laps, and through lap 3 at the moment. The field just splitting apart ever so slightly as a result. This is the angle that may portray a little bit more, and it might not be good viewing for John McCutcheon.
Yeah, just a bit too wide. Ever so slightly.
Yeah.
It wasn't massively aggressive. It was a it was a lunge from quite a ways back, but I don't necessarily think it was a massive. It wasn't a massive lunge that caused really too much. It was just a tiny bit of a drift too wide on exit. Couple that, I think, with Brisson just dropping down the circuit a little bit to cut off Matt Hutchinson. It was just. It's a tricky one to call. That is. It's a very tricky one to call.
It is, but you would maybe lean towards John McCutcheon in being at fault for that one. No doubt about that move, though, on Oliver Ettridge. Straight down the inside there. Martina Ward has made a very similar move on Michael LeMay, although LeMay has been able to maybe get a bit of a cutback on the exit of the hairpin, which is not that common. He's been able to get down the inside at 7 anyway, and they're going to have a go into the sort of Mercedes chicane here. Oh, bit of a squeeze from Martina Ward. Michael LeMay breaks too late, goes very wide, and Damien G is going to benefit from that without really having to do anything and move up to 9th place as Michael LeMay just drops to 10th.
Very much so, yeah. That secured Martina Ward that 8th position. Up 3 positions, started in P11, now up into P8. A little bit of a gap up towards Graham Brown, so we'll keep an eye and see how those lap times are. We might see that gap come down. We'll have to so keep an eye on it over the next few laps. We're about a quarter of the way through this. We're not a quarter of the way through. We're a third of the way through this race, if I could... if I knew. That was a little bit wide for Martina Ward there, going through that on the exit of 16 down into 17. You might... It's not a slowdown. It's a little bit less grippy on there, so there was would have been a bit of time loss anyway. But there's no slowdown there, I believe. I could very well be wrong though. It doesn't look like Martina Ward is slowing down though. So as we now go through, actually, is there a slowdown? There might very well be actually. Yes, there is. Okay, so I was wrong, and there seems to have been a little bit of a slowdown there. After all, it was quite wide anyway. So, further up the field though, John Hutchinson making another move. He's now up the inside, going around the outside of Paul Crabb. He has to go the long way around. Paul Crabb just washes wide. It's a little bit too wide, perhaps. A bit of argy-bargy between the two. And Paul Crabb manages to stay ahead, but Hutchinson, he's got a surprisingly good run. He's still there. I thought we were going to be 3 wide going down into turn 8 then. It's very, very brave if they do so. Hutchinson on the inside. That was... Paul Crabb, it looked like he cut very aggressively going into the apex there. He did have his right to do so, obviously, but even so, a little bit sketchy. It's Oliver Ettridge wanting to try and make a move on both of them. He tries to, can't quite make it stick though. Oh no, it's all gone wrong.
There it is. Paul Crabb, I mean, just going a little bit wide and slightly getting into McCutcheon, and miraculously, Paul Crabb was the only driver to actually feel the effects of that one, and I'm very surprised that was the case. As we see it here, he just got onto the gravel. Not really anyone's fault. He just went wide to give McCutcheon the space, obviously through the Mobil 1 curve there. Spun into the pole sitter, and unfortunately, Paul Crabb was the one who really felt the effects from that one. It looks like everybody's gotten away without damage, and as I said at the time, miraculously, only one car really getting involved in that.
Do you know what? I'm very surprised, actually, the fact that John Hutchinson didn't sustain more damage. His car seems to be... Well, he manages to stay ahead. He's not being dropped massively going down through the Parabolica. So, yeah, I'm very, very surprised. This car's this SR10 is a pretty tough little car. Unfortunately, though, the effects of just a standard slipstream taking its toll there, and Oliver Ettridge moves up into P4. So... John Hutchinson slots down the order into P5. I wonder if he has got a tiny bit of damage, because Graham Brown looks like he wants to try and make a move as well, perhaps. Does he go through? No, move down into turn 8. A little bit of a defensive line there from Hutchinson. That was a sideways moment. I think Oliver Ettridge had a bit of a moment there. Manages to keep it all in check, though. John Hutchinson again goes very, very wide. Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on what Hutchinson... Oh, he clips the ball there as well. We will have to keep an eye and just see if there is any sustainable damage. Perhaps as well it might have... I can't see it knocking the wheels out of alignment. That'd be too much. The drop-off would have been too much if that was the case. So I think that Hutchinson has got away with it. A bit further down the order, Mike Busson. 7 positions down, started P3, unfortunately. Now down in P10. He's got a little bit of time to go, obviously. We've got another 8 or so laps left of this race. So still very much all to play for. Perhaps as well, looking at the gaps, possibly... Again, P7, P6 on the cards. Depends what the time that Mike Buston is able to do and if he can pass Damien G and Michael LeMay relatively quickly, because once you get through sort of lap 10 or so, the time starts running out. You can see Martina Ward just up ahead there, and there's quite a big gap to Graham Brown in P6. So I think Mike Buston will be focusing on Martina Ward there and trying to go for that sort of position. Again, we just have to keep an eye on what lap times that he's able to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't expect there to be any damage really on most of these cars, even though the incidents we've seen so far, other than Dave Dowson, of course, who unfortunately is out of the race, Boutsen is going to be able to use that now to go down the inside, and he will make that move. I'm surprised he's not made a bit more progress, a bit quicker, actually, in this group. No disrespect to them, of course, but Boutsen, as you mentioned, is down, well, now 6 places from his starting position, because, yeah, he's just made up that place. This was this was the move, I should say. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is last lap. Oh, well, yeah.
Small little mistake.
So that's why. Yeah, I was wondering. Just as I said, I was wondering why he hadn't made progress, and that's pretty much why, because he made a bit of a mistake into the hairpin in trying to make that move last lap. But thankfully for him, this time he's got it done. As this battle for third now just hots up, and it's got a new member as well, with John McHutchinson gaining on both David Rollison and Oliver Ettridge at the moment.
Indeed, Oliver Etches, though, with the fastest lap of the race so far, this is live. He's just done a 1:31.85. So about 3 or 4 tenths quicker than anyone on circuit currently. The gap up ahead, though, between Rolliston and Edwards is about 6 seconds. So it's a little bit too far, perhaps. Even if Dave Rolliston does, around about sort of the low 31s, it's still not going to be enough. But as it stands, might be another position here gained relatively easily. Going through the parabolica, gets the slipstream. So Dave Rolliston, the number 262, is on the outside now. I think this may just be a relatively clean-cut move. Done and dusted. A little bit of a squeeze there from Oliver Ettridge. Maybe a bit too much of a squeeze there. Can Dave Rolliston get a good drive? He gets a drive, but it's not quite good enough. So Oliver Ettridge manages to maintain that P3. And we are ready to then go through... well, I mean, Oliver Ettridge, again, he's got upwards ahead. He's got Edwards and Maxwell. You can't see them, actually. You might be able to see them occasionally. Although, looking at the gap up ahead, have a look at this. Luke Maxwell, and there's Simon Edwards, only about... Oh, he goes a little wide there. Only 8 tenths of a second separate the two, so the slipstream is very much working for Simon Edwards. It just remains to be seen. Can he maintain this pace for the remainder of the race? And also, can he overtake?
Well, I think he referenced the slipstream there. I think it's only serving to keep Simon Edwards in touch at the moment. I don't actually think he's really got the pace to get any closer and make a move at the moment. Could eat my words in a few moments, but I don't think he's quite got the overall pace to make an overtake at this stage. We looked at the championship standings just before the qualifying session earlier. 23 points in favour of Simon Edwards. However, those points had Luke Maxwell's 2 drop rounds factored in, because he's had to miss 2 rounds so far. And it did not have both of Simon Edwards factored in. He only had the 1 race that he couldn't attend factored in. So his worst actual score that he's actually taken on hasn't been taken away from his actual points total yet. So I think because Simon Edwards has been so strong this season, I actually think that Luke Maxwell, when that's corrected, might be in the championship lead or very close to it anyway. So this could further an advantage for Maxwell at the moment. But of course it depends what happens over the last 2 rounds really, starting of course at Alton Park next time and the Nordschleife the time after that. 2 very difficult circuits to end on.
Indeed, very, very much so. Something happened to Paul Clark here. Did he just grab a bit too much curb? That's a bit too quick in, isn't it? Yeah, too fast in, rear swaps around. As spins go, it was about the best spin you could ever have, really, isn't it? It was minimal time loss, wasn't even a full spin. So yeah, just a small little moment there for Paul Clark. And then we might have another one. This is going down to turn 6 for Paul Clark. So this is another moment. Does he grab a bit too much grass? Maybe the rear comes around. Yeah, rear's going to come around, isn't it? Yep, there we go. Bit more of a spin that time. So a little bit more. And probably worth knocking that brake bias a couple of clicks forward. Again, that's personally what I would be doing in that position, just to allow the car to give me a little bit more leeway with the car. Yeah, up ahead, Simon Edwards has dropped a tiny bit, 2 or 3 tenths. It's not massive, but it's certainly substantial enough that the slipstream is becoming less and less prominent every single lap. This is one of the closest battles we've got, though, Damien G and Paul Crabb. So I wonder if there's going to be a move down into turn 6. There's going to be no move down into turn 2. It's just a little bit too far back. Nice wide line there for Paul Crabb. You can just see very, very nice wide line. And Damien G took a little bit too much speed going into turn 2, and that compromised him through 3 and 4. And this is going to be, if Paul Crabb, can get his braking point done, so it's going to be a done deal, I would imagine. And he brake later. No, darts in. Tell you what, Damien G's car looks pretty fast. There's no damage, I don't think, with these cars, so it seems to be out and outright pace, and Damien G might be running a bit less downforce.
Yeah, it is a very much a discussion that we often have, actually, with the drivers about whether they've gone for a more higher or lower downforce setup, depending on obviously what circuit you're at, which obviously has a big bearing on it, but also whether you want to be the one making the overtakes or keeping those behind you with more straight line speed, or you want to be trying to make those overtakes and struggling in a straight line. It certainly does look like Damien G is maybe struggling a little bit more in the corners compared to Paul Crabb, and a little bit faster on the straights as well. So it's helping him just stay in front in this 10th place at the moment, but with all respect to Paul Crabb, it is a little bit lower than where we'd expect to see him. Certainly, he started off this season fantastically at Laguna Seca, but since has not had a fantastic time of things. Previous champion, of course, of this series, so not a bad driver at all, but just languishing outside the top 10 at the moment. As Mike Bousson is recovering quite nicely here, up to 7th place now, but that might be all he's going to get over these final 5 laps. The gap just might be too big to the 6 in front.
Indeed, so yeah, just a little bit too far. Just a little bit too far. You can see, I mean, to be fair, John Hudson tried to make a move there on Dave Rolliston, couldn't quite get it done. So there might be a bit of battling. That 7 seconds might come down. That's a very, very, unfortunately, Mike Busson just going for a spin there again. A bit too much speed on the way in. And that was, unfortunately, has cost him a little bit, cost him the position back on Martina Ward. Yeah, this battling going on here, it's a three-way battle, you could probably argue, because Graham Brown is still there or thereabouts. John Hutchinson seems to be a bit faster than Dave Rolliston at this moment in time. So if Dave Rolliston can hold a very, very nice defensive race for the remainder and for the next 4 or 5 laps, then that gap will come down. It would be surprising how quickly that 9 seconds from Martina Ward to Graham Brown drops substantially. If John Hutchinson can get by, then I think it'll be a done deal and the gap will stay roughly the same. But it depends. Dave Rolliston has been managing to hold off John Hutchinson for a couple of laps, so if he can hold it off a little bit more, there's going to be some good battling in the final third of this race.
So basically allowing, though, Oliver Ettridge away with this 3rd place at the moment. If John Hutchinson or indeed Graham Brown, I suppose, can't get through on Rolliston here in the probably this lap really, or the next couple at least, then Ettridge is going to be in 3rd place. And if this battle really turned into a very fierce one with a lot of side-by-side and it ends up losing a lot of time for the 2 of them, or the 3 of them now, then it is even more going to play into the hands of Oliver Ettridge. Once again, we're seeing David Rolliston a little bit more straight line speed there. You can see McCutcheon struggling to get on terms. This setup obviously got him pole in qualifying, but maybe not quite as good to race with, because in the race, of course, you need that little bit of straight line speed to both hold those guys behind you, but also to just make the overtakes as well. And I don't think John McCutcheon really had that in mind, or he certainly didn't have being in traffic in mind when he was setting out for this race. Of course, he was hoping for a lights to flag victory, but now that he is having to do overtaking, he is beginning to struggle with it a little bit, because Rolliston's car in a straight line is too good and he can't really get near it.
Yeah, I mean, you can see John Hutchinson, he's able to pull the time back in the infield section, but as we said earlier on in the broadcast, the overtaking just isn't really available in this infield section. You can't really do much, so you do want to have a tiny bit less wing to be able to compensate for the fact you can't overtake. And as you say, good qualifying set that John Hutchinson is running, but it might not be preferred. It might not be optimal for where he is currently. But as you say, wasn't necessarily expecting to be in this position. He tries to go through there. Interesting. We're going to sit on board with David Rolleston. He goes a little bit wide, though. That might have opened the door, perhaps, for John Hutchinson. But let's see if he pulls away. Remember, John Hutchinson, he did take a bit of a whack, though, so that may be hurting the aero a tiny little bit, but he seems to have grabbed it enough now. And there might be a position to be gained here. That was about as late as you want it to be, wouldn't it? So here we go. Side by side, both Dave Rolleston and John Hutchinson. John Hutchinson goes wide. Is there going to be a cutback? Is there going to be a cut? Oh, it was a bit of a tap. Dave Rolleston just gets on the power, front end lifts, and it washes wide. Tiny bit more patient on the throttle. That would have been a really nice cutback, but you just see as soon as the throttle was added, car just pushed wide, and unfortunately that just a little bit of a knock there for John Hutchinson. Didn't give any more damage, I don't think, but still not ideal, and Dave Rolleston drops a couple of positions as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a very good effort from Rolleston, I have to say. He pretty much did what he had to there. He had to just get on the power immediately there and just try and get the over and under executed nicely, but unfortunately John Hutchinson had his car in the way, as he's obviously got a right to do. He's not just going to let Rolleston through, obviously. So he placed it well, as even Hutchinson's got off the road now into the penultimate corner by the looks of things, but Rolleston is not going to really gain from it. He's going to get 5th place back at least, but it's Graham Brown who gains most out of it. I think it was an accident anyway, although it might have just been a disconnection from John Hutchinson. We'll find out.
Yeah, just loses. I wonder what happened there.
Incident limit, possibly, because he went off the road. He would have gotten off track. I wonder if that was another incident, and he's hit the incident limit, which is 15 incidents in the UK&I and Radical Race Series. If you get to 15, you're disqualified from the race immediately. We've seen with our own eyes that he would have got 2 4Xs for the contact down here at the hairpin that he had with Mike Booston. He would have got a 4X for the contact with, I think was it Paul Clark, who classed it into him at the Mobil 1 curve, or was it Paul Cram? I can't remember. But one of them clattered into him. That would have been another 4X, so that only leaves you 7 off-road moments. However, the incident limit there is not really conclusively telling us that. Only saying 8X.
Yeah, not necessarily. Again, not entirely sure. We might see if we might be chatting with John Hutchinson after the race. We'll see. A couple more laps to go. And yeah, John Hutchinson won't be scoring any points this round, or at least he won't be scoring that many points. He has completed majority of the race. So Luke Maxwell, final lap. White flag has been waved. The gap is 1.3 seconds. So Luke Maxwell just needs to do what he has been doing for the last the last sort of 13, 14 laps, and he will be golden. But Simon Edwards, he's very much there or thereabouts. And when we saw, did we not see at Summit Point? I remember a few weeks ago now, did we or did we not see it? All kicked off right at the very end on that last final lap. So anything can happen. We simply do not know. But again, some good points all for Maxwell, some another good amount of points all for Simon Edwards as well. So, you know, overall, can't certainly argue with the rate. The fact that they've pulled, 5 seconds on Oliver Ettridge. Even though Oliver Ettridge, don't get me wrong, he's been very, very fast. The fastest lap of the race. The only person in the 31s for this race, bear in mind. With Simon Edwards, the next fastest with a 32.17. Near enough, you know, getting on for 4/10 faster. Very, very impressive lap time for Oliver Ettridge there. So he's definitely got some speed in him. We'll hopefully be able to see him. Like I said, not the best qualifying, 8th position in terms of qualifying, but you know, Oliver Ettridge is coming up to P3. Can't argue with that at all. A few more corners to go. Just the infield section one last time.
Absolutely, and just going to have to control the race from here, as he has done from start to finish. Really going to just close that championship margin to only 18 points. After these races with 2 to go. It's very much on between these two.
Very much is, but Luke Maxwell takes round 10 victories relatively happily, can't you tell? So he will take victory. Simon Edwards in 2nd place, strong performance from him. And then Oliver Ettridge will be coming across the line in P3. He's pretty happy as well. Where's Graham Brown? He'll be coming to a couple of seconds behind 4th, and then Dave Rolleston in P5. We're going to get your official finishing results in a few moments, and then we're going to be taking some of our interviews as well with a few drivers once they've completed their in-laps. But very, very good performance. Another good race that we have seen. A little bit of contact here and there, but you know, the main contact we saw was down into turn 6, which again is the biggest braking zone on this track. It is a tricky braking zone to get, especially when you have got a bit of slipstream, you're trying to make some positions, you've got to be very precise. And a tiny little bit offline or a tiny bit too late on the brakes and it can go all catastrophically wrong. But everyone managed to get through relatively unscathed, even when there was a bit of damage. Luckily it wasn't race ending for too many people, which is obviously the main thing. Most drivers, apart from Dave Dowson obviously earlier in the race, and due to damage, was the only actual retiree from damage. John Hutchinson, not entirely sure still. We'll have to see what that was all about. I'm sure we'll get some information on that after the race. But yeah, overall, another very, very good race. And as you say, all very much to play for within the next couple of rounds.
It definitely is. It was another good race between everybody. Good battles throughout that one. But yeah, a slight mystery really with Hutchinson towards the end. He'll be disappointed with how this race has gone, of course. But yeah, not a bad race at all at the end of that one. And this championship is just going to continue to get interesting as well here in this one. We'll look forward to seeing where the points are at after this race now. But I do think that Maxwell may end up with a bit of an advantage when it all sorts itself out. But obviously we'll wait and find out as we just get confirmation of Luke Maxwell, the results here, and Luke Maxwell's fourth win of the season now.
Indeed, very much so. There you go. So Maxwell taking race win number 4 of the Radical Race Series 2022 Season 3. Simon Edwards second, Ettridge third, Brown fourth, Rolderson fifth, Mike Busson in P6, Martina Ward 7th, Michael Lamay P8, Paul Crabb 9th, Damien G 10th, Paul Clark in P11, Graham Brown in P12, number 66, and then unfortunately not finishing the race, Matt Hutchinson and Dowson. Yes, there we go. 14 cars started. 12 finished for round number 10. Yeah, going next circuit as well. Pretty opposite end of the scale. Something like Alton Park. Very, very tight. Very, very narrow circuit. It's going to be a big, big difference from a massive, big open circuit like this. I'm intrigued to see how that goes next week. But I believe, hopefully in a couple of minutes, Ewan, we'll have a couple of interviews.
Yeah, we do already have Luke Maxwell waiting for us. Hopefully we'll bring him in and have a bit of a chat with him. We'll just do that now. Luke, welcome to the broadcast booth again. Good to have you here. Another victory here tonight at the Hockenheim ring. You and Simon Edwards were about a second apart for the majority of that race. Obviously you two never really fought it out side by side, of course, but it was I guess you could call a battle. What was it like throughout that race? Just battling with him, I guess you could say.
Yeah, tough to be honest. The last few races I've done, I've overcooked the tyres a bit and really struggled towards the end. So I was really trying to, be conscious of looking after the car, looking after the tyres. But you got Simon a second behind you. It's a tough ask. So I was trying to go quickly but carefully as much as I could and maintain that gap as best as I could. I think he was quicker in the last sector, and I think I was a bit quicker in the first sector. So just trying to manage the gap really.
You two are very well matched indeed in the championship now. Only 18 points between you guys as things stand. 2 rounds to go. How are you feeling about those rounds at Alton Park and the Nordschleife, of course? And what do you think about the championship? Do you think you'll be able to overhaul him in the final few races, couple of races?
Well, I'll definitely try. I mean, I like Alton Park and I like Nordschleife, but I felt this track's not one I've raced at too much before, so it was a bit of a tricky one to get some practice in this week. But hopefully I'll be competitive in the next 2, and it's just a case of trying to hang in there. We'll see how it goes. The other guys have picked up the pace as well, so there's a lot of competition at the front for sure.
Certainly is. We look forward to seeing you again next week, Luke. But for now, we'll let you go now. Enjoy the victory, and thanks for coming to have a chat with us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much. Luke Maxwell, first place here today at Hockenheim, and that looks it for now in terms of interviews. Nobody else waiting for us at the moment. But yeah, Luke Maxwell seems very pleased with that victory, and we'll see how he gets on for the rest of the season, of course. Just as I have been waffling on there, I'll bring in Ollie Ettridge as well, because he's popped himself in there, so we'll have a chat with him as well from third place. Bit of a wonky order, but never mind. Ollie, welcome to the broadcast booth as well. Third place for you here today, just able to hold off the likes of Graham Brown towards the end there. Were you kind of worried about that third place when you saw there was a number of drivers actually just pretty close behind you and threatening your podium position a little bit?
Well, that would rely on me realising that I was in a podium position. About halfway through the race, I completely lost track of where I was. And then on the final lap, I saw that I was in third, and then all the mistakes started creeping in as the pressure was on. So, yeah, good result, but very nearly lost it at the end.
It is certainly a good result here. I mean, what kind of downforce settings did you actually go for here today? Because we were talking about this a little bit in commentary about, do you want that speed around the parabolic or down the straight? Do you want the downforce for the technical sections, the stadium section towards the end? What was the consensus with you, indeed, particularly with regards to how much downforce you actually put on for this race, maybe compared to some others?
I went for more downforce for this one because I thought that the race would be more sort of inline train recession. So I thought, well, I'll get the advantage in the arena section, and the slipstream on the straights will keep me in contention there. But then it didn't quite turn out that way. There was a lot of side-by-side battling, and yeah, so thankfully the setup seemed to work in the end.
Yeah, it certainly did. Congratulations on third place here today, Ollie, and thanks very much for coming. Oh dear, I can't even speak. Thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ollie Ettridge, third place here today at Hockenheim, and final podium driver as well. Simon Edwards is waiting as well, so we'll bring him in. Simon, good to have you here once again. He's second placed on today. Couldn't quite get through on Luke Maxwell at the end, but I wanted to just go back to the start a little bit because you started a little bit further down in that fifth position. What was that start like? Because there was quite a lot going on.
Yeah, there was. First of all, that was about the best qualifying I could do. I just couldn't get the understeer out of the car, so it's not like I messed up. I just didn't really have the pace. But yeah, I got a good start. I think I got past somebody off the start, but then I nearly ran into the back of everybody in T1. And then it was tricky. The tyres were really quite tricky. You probably saw, I think it was John out of T2. And then I was really struggled to give him room there, so I was a bit. I thought we were going to clash, but I managed to just not understeer too much into him. So that was the first scare, and then the big scare. I'm not quite sure how I got through that. I had a little. I could see something might go on, so I took it a little bit easy into the corner, and luckily for that, it gave me enough so I could change my line just.
You did negotiate it all very well. I mean, looking at ahead to the final couple of races here, obviously Luke Maxwell has got good pace at the moment. He won another race here today. In terms of the championship, are you a little bit concerned about the pace, or do you think you'll have enough to see out the championship over the final two rounds?
No, Luke's got the pace on me, I think. I've just got to learn where he lives so I can cut his internet. But apart from that, I think it's his to lose, and rather than me be able to beat him easily, or we're always going to be close, I think. But I think he's got the edge at the moment on me. I'm just hoping he doesn't know Nords as well as I do. So we'll see on the last race, but I bet he does.
We'll see what happens. But Simon, thanks very much for coming to have a chat to us, and congratulations on second place here tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Simon Edwards, second place here today at Hockenheim, Dan. So that's just about going to do it for interviews there. We've spoken to the top three drivers and all seem relatively pleased with where they ended up in the end.
Indeed, very much so. Good to see everyone. Good to hear everyone again. But yes, we do have to wrap up. Thank you all so much for watching and be a part of the Radical Race series. So round number 10, 2 rounds left to go here. It'll be interesting to see how these final 2 rounds shape up. It's going to be interesting nevertheless. And we're very much looking forward to it here in the commentary booth. And hopefully you are looking forward to watching this live or watching it back, whether you're a driver, spectator, supporter, etc. Big thank you as well to the organisers, admins, and everyone that is part of the Radical Race series. And we look forward to seeing everyone next week at Alton Park. As always, take care, stay safe.